everyone. Thrilled that you are with us to talk about everyday beauty with Tomo Hamada and the tradition from which he comes. Before beginning, I have been remiss in times past, but I do want to take time just simply to say thank you to Professor Andrew Maske, who has been with us through thick and thin, through slips and glazes over many, many years, and brought wisdom and appreciation and understanding to the fine art of ceramics. So Andrew, thank you, thank you, thank you. And Mugi-chan, thank you very much for always being available to us to help with the interpretation and translation of these conversations. They really would not be possible with such fluidity without you. And I know you are always happy when people call you out, but I'm doing it anyway to say thank you very much as well. Today is a wonderful opportunity to share with as many of you as are signed up, and then with the recording that we do and share with others, to say that this is probably the most impressive 3 generations exhibition that we have presented to date, caused in part by the fact that we've been able to acquire a large number of works by Shoji, the grandfather, and had the cooperation through Koei Saka of having the works of Shinsaku Hamada and Tomo. My sense is that both of those artists have contributed to the exhibition some of the most beautiful works of theirs that we have had to date. And again, another opportunity to say thank you. I'd like to sort of begin. Oh, sorry, you go ahead.
Okay. ですね、今、皆様にここに参加していただいて、エブリデイビューティーというこのウェビナーに参加していただいて本当にありがとうございます。またマスキー教授もいつも長い間私たちと共に討議について話していただいてありがとうございました。今回の、展示は今までの中で一番素晴らしい展示ではないかと思っております。で、それに関しましてはかなり大量の陶器新作様、もちろん友様のもですけれども、それらを購入できたことで、それが多分今回の素晴らしい展示の要因ではないかというふうに思っております。Okay.
Thank you. Caroline, very grateful to you as well. One, for helping just in the normal sense of the way the gallery does these webinars, but also asking you from time to time to participate with us, given your background and love of ceramics. So I think we're ready to go with it. I wanted to begin with a quote from Brother Thomas, which may or may not be helpful here, but artists fight against tradition when they have nothing to add to it. So artists fight against tradition when they have nothing to add to it. Because so much of what we have experienced with the work from Japan is based upon traditions that have been handed down intergenerationally. And now we're dealing with 3 generations of one family. And so I thought it might be interesting for us to have the conversation today with that quote in mind, and to see if and when it may or may not be relevant to this discussion and to the work under the title of Everyday Beauty. As you can see, there are 3 generations: Shoji Hamada, who passed in 1978, Shinsaku, who is a mere 94, and Tomo, who's only 54. So somehow I feel comfortable with those age ranges. And I want to begin with asking Andrew to respond to the first beautiful square plate of Shoji Hamada. Andrew?
It's a pleasure again to participate in a Pucker Gallery WebinART, and especially to look at pieces by the 3 generations of the Hamada family. As my essay in the catalog alludes, Hamada Shoji, the first of the Hamadas, was not himself sort of trained in a traditional mode, but alluding now to the Brother Thomas quote that Bernie just shared with us, He certainly did not fight against tradition. He embraced tradition and really spoke through tradition in expressing his own creativity, his own modes of art, and this is a very good example here in this square plate. It looks quite basic to us. It looks relatively simple to, I think, most people who are not themselves potters or who haven't had wide exposure to ceramic production methods. But in fact, it is rather complicated. And I wonder if Tomo would talk to us a little bit about how this plate would have been decorated by his grandfather.
今なんですけども、この3世代浜田家の3世代の、展示に関わることができて大変ありがたいと思っております。カタログのエッセイにも書いてあるんですけれども、庄司浜田という方は、その伝統に抗うことはなく、それを伝統を取り入れて、伝統を通して自分の想像力、あるいは表現力を発揮した人であるということが言えると思います。で、その良い例がここの四角いお皿なんですけれども、これは非常にベーシックで、陶芸にあまり詳しくない方は、非常にシンプルなものであるというふうにお考えになるかもしれないんですけれども、多分そんなことではなく、友さんには一つお聞きしたいのは、これをそのおじい様がどのようにして、その絵付け、デコレーションをなさったのかということをちょっとお聞きしてみたいと思います。
はい。見た感じとしては非常にシンプルな色構成の作品ですね。
First of all, I just look at it. It looks simple, and in terms of coloring and in terms of the structure, it looks very simple.
で、形が非常に力強い形です。
The form is very strong. It's very straight and strong.
ただ、グレージング、絵付け、釉薬がけのことをグレージングですよね。グレージングするときに、ワックスを溶かして筆で塗るんですけれども、それを何回かやってる、多用してるので、見た目ほどシンプルじゃない仕事です。
Well, but it's glazing. In terms of glazing, he applied a wax, like a melted wax, and then basically decorate this piece, but so many layers of decoration. So it actually, the actual work is not as simple as it looks.
浜田庄司自身の仕事は非常に素早く終わります。浜田庄司も、この流し掛けという手法、ポワリングするんですけれども、ひしゃくでポワリングするというのを15秒しかかかってないということなんですね。でも、そのたった15秒で終わることに対して、あまりにも短すぎるんじゃないかという意見に対して、それは15秒プラス60年の仕事なんですというふうに返答したという、そういう逸話があります。
So actual making procedure, for example, or pouring glaze into this pottery was finished in a short period of time, which took only 15 seconds. But people actually asked him why it's only 15 seconds. It's a little bit short. Then he said, yes, it takes only 15 seconds, but based on the 60-year experience. That's what he told the people when he was asked.
And I should point out that it's the green glaze, the cross in the middle, that was done by pouring.
その、緑色、その十字のあれラインなんですけども、これはそのかけることによって生まれたということですね。
はい、ポワリングします。この緑色の釉薬と茶色のカキグレイズという釉薬が非常に相性が悪いので、この2つを分けてかけなければいけないので、ワックスを使います。
But because of the green glaze and this khaki glaze of brown part, they do not compensate together very well. So it has to be separated, has to be poured separately. That's why it is necessary to use wax.
最初にこの緑色の線のところをワックスを塗ります。
First, you waxed on this line of green color.
その後、この書き薬でもなければ緑色でもないそのクリアグレイズという透明な薬の場所があると思いますけれども、そこもワックスをかけます。
And then not the khaki glaze or not green glaze, but there's a clear part of it so that he waxed the clear part with clear glaze. Second.
That's the olive area that you can see. That's actually a clear glaze and the base ceramic underneath.
裏が下の底の方にクリアグレーズがかけられているということですか。
そうですね、はい。それでこのマスキングをする、ろうを塗ってマスキングするという仕事は浜田商事の仕事ではなくて、ワーカーですね、職人たちがやります。30分は時間がかかります。
So this masking part, it takes maybe 30 minutes, but it's not Shoji Hamada's actual part of his work. His disciples will do all those masking procedures.
表現する仕事が15秒ですけれども、その後、その技術的な仕事が30分かかるということでしょうね。
So the expression part of work takes 15 seconds, but the technical part of work will take maybe half an hour. 30 minutes. Yes, half an hour.
テクニカルパートのところはワーカーの人たちがやるということです。
So technical parts was done by other people, like his disciples.
そのあたりがその民芸的な部分と芸術家、陶芸家としての部分が混ざっている表現ですね。
So this pottery expressed the very Mingei style expression of artists and the technical style of the artisans mixed together in this one piece.
I wanted to, however, talk just about it visually, Andrew, if you could, because part of it is the technique as to how it's done, and clearly Shoji had mastered the combination of the apprentices and his own combination of working with them. But at the same time, we're now left with it as a work of art, or I am in any event. So I would like to, at least for one brief moment, talk a bit about it as what I would call art.
マスキ教授にこれもちろんこれはその技術的な部分と民芸的な部分、表現的な部分が混ざっているんですけれども、とりあえずその芸術的な側面からこの陶芸について先生にちょっとコメントをいただきたいということです。
So, Andrew?
You wanted me to talk? I thought you were going to talk about the.
No, I referenced you. I'd love to have your response. And I'm looking at it and sort of in awe of it as an extraordinary painting that might be on the wall. We just have it as a plate sitting upright, but there are all the irregularities and the division of space, all those things that I think could be talked about. So that's what I was asking you to do. Sorry.
Okay. Well, it's interesting that the differing squares that we see in the middle of the plate, and then the differing areas of the frame, the rim of the plate, they're actually derived from a traditional technique that we see in black and white from about 400 years ago, the Momoyama period, called Ishidatami. And so in this plate, Hamada Shoji is referencing that, but not doing it in the same way. It's almost unrecognizable. But he takes this and uses the plate almost like a framed picture. And despite his connection with the Minge movement, Hamada was very in tune, in touch with modern art, with contemporary art, with painting. He was originally trained as a painter. And so he's using both the traditional and the contemporary to make a new type of ceramic that has, I think, in his mind, the best qualities of tradition, but yet is expressing his own feelings, his own impetus in a modern way. So Minge, in the sense, the folk arts of traditional Japan were an influence on him, but he did not see himself as a folk artist. He was a ceramic artist. He worked in his own time, not in the past.
これを見るとですね、桃山時代にある石畳という、技術的な手法があって、その伝統的な手法を踏まえているようにも思うんですけれども、まあ、多分、おじい様の方は参考にはしているが全く同じではなく、この、お皿を、絵のように、絵画、現代美術の、絵画のように扱っていて、これを伝統的な技術と現代絵画を一緒にしたような作品になっていると思われます。で、それは結局伝統と近代の一番、庄司浜田にとっては一番の、組み合わせであったのではないかと思うんですけれども、その伝統を踏まえながら自分の表現を非常に現代的に自分の想像力あるいは感情を現代的に表現している。そして民芸は多分もちろん大きな影響を与えていたとは思いますけれども、庄司浜田という人は結局のところ陶芸芸術家であり、新しい現代的な、芸術家であるということが言えると思います。
はい。そうですね。
We're going to move on to the next one, but Andrew, I want to thank you very much because I think that was very helpful for all of us to realize that there's a respect for tradition and at the same time, the capacity to be a very contemporary artist. This is a very traditional form, as I understand it, a katakuchi, a pour. But Tomo, if you would speak a bit about it, it's, I would assume, a fairly early piece in terms of the ones we have in the gallery. But I'd love to hear your background of it.
この庄司浜田というその伝統を重んじながらも現代的なアプローチした芸術家であるというふうに考えられるんですけども、この片口のこの作品についてちょっと感想を教えて言っていただければありがたいのですけれど。
はい、そうですね。浜田庄司、片口という器を結構たくさん作っています。
Shoji made quite a lot of amount of katakuchi, which is this type of shape pottery.
日本人はここにお酒を入れて組み交わすというようなことに使うことも多いです。
Most Japanese use this type of this form of pottery for pouring sake in it and then use it for drinking.
お酒を入れなくても果物を入れたり、例えば煮物を入れたりということも可能な器です。
もちろん、it doesn't have to be sake, but it may be fruits or maybe stewed vegetables or the other way of using this.
一つの芸術作品として見るというのも大切ですが、浜田庄司はやはり生活の中で使ってもらいたいというふうな気持ちが強くある人でして、これも使ってもらうということを強く思いながら作った品物です。
Of course, this is one way to look at this is as a art piece, but Shoji Hamada had a strong feeling that he wanted customers to use his pieces in a daily life. And he had a very strong desire for the customers to use them every day. This is, and then if you look at it, this is one of those potteries that he made based on those feelings.
それからこの作品のバックにありますのが、韓国の陶芸や中国の陶芸などがその背景にあって、その影響も感じられます。
And also, you can see the influences from Korea or from China on this piece.
特に若い頃の浜田庄司の作品は、この中国や韓国の陶芸に対する影響の強いものが多いです。
And especially his earlier pieces, Shoji Hamada's earlier pieces, you see a lot of influences, strong influences from China and Korea.
この作品は絵付けが全くなくて、この飴色の薬、アンバーグレイズ一色のシンプルな作品ですね。
So this piece doesn't have any decorations. It's only a ame glaze, which is the amber glaze only.
注ぎ口の横に小さな丸い点が見えると思いますが、これは、釜焼きをするときに、その注ぎ口の部分の粘土が、ひびが入らないようにするための支えというか、カバーって何でしょうね、補強ですね、補強したものなんですが、それがデザイン的にも非常に美しいとか、ユニークな見どころになっています。
So you can see this round part right next to the pouring mouth. That's actually, those are the ones to reinforce the part of pouring part in fire and kiln so they won't get cracked. So that's the function of this round part. But actually, from the designing point of view, it has a very strong and unique feature of this simply looking piece.
私もこの器にお酒を入れて使ってみたいなと思います。
I would like myself to use this in pouring osake in there.
Correct. Andrew, thoughts about this piece?
Yeah, I thought that I was struck by the fact that this is an undecorated piece, that it doesn't have glaze or painting on it at all. And also that it's considered to be quite early in Hamada Shoji's career. Is it true, Tomo-san, that this is an early piece and also rather rare piece for Hamada Shoji?
私はこれを見て全く絵付けのなされていないこの作品を見て非常に感銘を受けたのですけれども、これは庄司浜田さんの初期の作品ということですが、これは非常に稀な庄司浜田さんの作品の中では稀なものというふうに言ってもよろしいんでしょうか。
絵付けがないから。
絵付けがないものもたくさんあります。やはり絵付けの多いものほど芸術性の高いものというふうに見られることが多いと思います。で、この絵付けの少ない日常の器という点で、より、なんていうんでしょうね、生活の中で溶け込みやすい、使いやすいものを目指したんだと思います。
Actually, there are several pieces that he made without any decoration, but it seems that with decorations, the more decoration the piece has, the more artistic the piece will be. It seems that's sort of the normal idea about pieces, but I think he made this very simple without any decoration piece is because that you can use it more easily in daily life. And I think that's what his idea was for this piece.
I just love basically the notion of the simplicity of it and the fact that it looks very much like a bird. with its mouth or beak, and then the eyes on either side, which you indicated really secure it so it doesn't get knocked off in the kiln. And it has a kind of personality with or without decoration, and it has a very engaging, inviting presence for me. The simplicity of it, I think, is what appeals greatly.
なんかこれは非常に簡単な、もちろん絵付きがないのなんですけれども、私から見ると、パカシですが、私から見ると、これはなんか鳥のような、補強のところの丸いのが鳥の目で、くちばしのある鳥のような感じにも見えるし、非常になんて言うんでしょう、こう温かく人を引きつける作品ではないかと思います。
So let's go to the next piece, if we can, and talk about both the decoration, the simplicity again, but also the function of this within the context of the Japanese tea ceremony. So Andrew, can you begin?
Are you going to translate, Mugi?
Yes,
Oh,
は
right,
い。
sorry.
そう、これを次、
right.
これは、ごめんなさい、sorry。お茶碗なんですけども、非常にシンプルな形のものなんですが、これは非常に伝統を踏まえたものであるということで、まず、アンドリュー教授にコメントをいただきたいと思います。
Yeah, I think it's fascinating that, you know, the co-founder with Hamada of the Mingei movement, Yanagi Soetsu, was really quite critical of practitioners of Cha-no-yu, the Japanese tea ceremony, and the ceramics that were made for it, such as rakuware. He was very critical of that. But Hamada Shoji himself does not seem to have been against tea, and in fact embraced it and made works like this one, a tea bowl. And when we were discussing in advance, I asked Tomo-san if this was indeed a tea bowl or it was simply a bowl like for soup or rice or something, and he said no, it was a tea bowl. So I'd like to hear him talk a little bit about the tea bowl in regard to Shoji Hamada and his attitude towards tea.
これ、浜田庄司さんと柳宗悦さんの、柳宗悦さんの、こう、融合したような形の茶碗なんですけれども、茶の湯というのは、浜田庄司さん自身はその茶の湯に関して抗うことなくそれを取り入れた形の、陶芸家だと思うんですけれども、そのお茶碗に対して浜田庄司さんのその茶の湯に対するその態度というか考えというのはどのようなものだったかちょっとお聞かせいただきたいんですが。
はい。浜田庄司は、茶の湯のお茶の道具として、茶碗は非常にたくさん作りました。その他、水差しとか、いくつかのお茶の道具を作っていますけども、最も作ったのが茶碗ですね。
He made a lot of, Shoji Hamada created a lot of tools for chanoyu, like mizusashi, like for water, or other tools which are used in a tea ceremony. But among them, he created a lot of chawan, which is the tea bowl.
浜田庄司は茶の湯の茶道にあまり深く関わってはいませんでした。
He was not very deeply involved in a tea ceremony himself.
ただ、陶芸家として、お茶の道具を作るということは非常に重要なことだと考えていました。
But however, he thinks as a potter, it was very important for him important for a potter to get involved in a tea ceremony and create many tea bowls or other tools for tea ceremony.
この陶芸家として茶道具を作る という部分とは別に、その民芸運動の主導者、リーダーとして、民芸運動を盛んに、世の中に、浸透させるという仕事と、両方ありました。
So, as a potter, it is important for him to make tools for tea ceremony, but also as a leader of the Mingei movement, for encourage the Mingei movement to get into among people, it is also very important for him to create tea bowls.
一つ間違いやすいことがありまして、彼はその民芸運動のリーダーであります。ただ、民芸品を作っている職人、ワーカーではなくて、彼は、マスケさんも最初の方に話しましたけれども、民芸品ではなくて、芸術品、陶芸の芸術品を作る作家であるという、アーティストであるという立場でありますね。その立場で、美しい品物を作るということだったわけなんですけれども、それと別にその民芸運動を主導したという、そういうことです。
So the one aspect of Shoji Hamada, which might be misunderstood by a lot of people, is that he was a leader of Mingei movement, but he himself was not an artisan of Mingei, but he was the artist who created art, like a pottery art himself. But at the same time, I mean, he supported Mingei, and as a leader of Mingei movement, he created a beautiful art as an artist, as a potter. So those two aspects of him might sometimes be a little bit confusing for people.
この民芸運動を通して、例えば古い韓国の美しい茶碗を作る職人たちの仕事をに感動したり、古い日本の丼ですね、丼とかお椀の美しさに感動をするわけですね。その感動した感覚というものを自分の茶碗作りに生かすということです。
So as a leader of Mingei movement, he really appreciated like Korean pieces that made by apprentices of the artisans of Korea, or very old Japanese like rice bowls or donburi, which is a little bigger bowls. And he was so impressed and was moved by these old pieces, and he used those feelings into his own in his own pieces.
And we just for a minute, Tomo, sorry, I just wanted Andrew just to talk a bit about the brushwork on this, because this is a wonderful example in a very simple way of his decoration.
これの今ちょっとあれなんですけども、この、筆使いについてちょっと教授にお聞きしたいと思います。
Yeah, so this is the famous motif of Hamada Shoji, his sugarcane motif that he adopted during or following a visit to Okinawa, where a lot of sugarcane grows. And he's put it on this bowl, but turned it sideways. So it's the left-hand side, as you look at it, would be the base. And then what we see on the right is the top of the sugarcane. And as I've heard from Tomo-san and a few others, over time, the style of Hamada Shoji's sugarcane motif changed, and you can even use the style of the motif to roughly date some of his pieces. It's been taken further and said that in his youth, Hamada Shoji, in his younger years, his sugar cane was more vibrant and youthful, and as he got older, the style of his sugar cane kind of got older along with him. That's just maybe an opinion or some sort of interpretation that people have had, but it does clearly change over time. And this is a very, very beautiful example of his very lively brushwork in that sort of ink painting style for which Japan is so famous.
これはこれ沖縄のサトウキビのモチーフで非常に有名なものなんですけれども、これは沖縄に庄司さんが行かれたときに、これに入手したというか、これを自分のものになされたんですけれども、これ左の方が根っこの方で、右の方がサトウキビの上なんですが、このサトウキビのモチーフは、若い頃はもっとなんというんでしょう。若い子のサトウキビのモチーフというのはもっと若さにあふれて、非常に勢力あるものだったんですけれども、多分陶芸家自身が、成熟するに従ってモチーフも変わっていって、非常に成熟した形になっていったということが言えるかと思います。
はい。
So I think we can move. Sorry, I think we can move on, but I did want to at least focus on that, and then have this rather delightful set of 5 unomis. Tomo, you talked a bit about the notion that it may not have been, in fact, created as a set when we first looked at it, and I'd appreciate your sharing that approach with us.
これ5点セットになったお湯飲みなんですけれども、最初はこれはセットとしては作られなかったということでしょうか。
珍しい例でありまして、最初からセットで浜田庄司が作ったものではなくて、浜田庄司のコレクターがたまたま5つ持っていたものを5つ入りの箱に入れたということですね。
Yes, this is a very rare example, but those are not created as a set, but Shoji Hamada's collector happened to own 5 unomi and put them together in one box. That's what it is.
で、その切り箱に後から浜田庄司が箱書きをしたということです。
So after that, they put those 5 pieces into this one box, and Hamada actually wrote on the box later.
非常に親しい間柄のコレクターだったんではないかと思います。それなので特別にこのような切り箱のセットを許したんだと思います。
I believe that this collector was very close to Shoji Hamada. That's why he agreed to put those 5 different pieces into one box.
It's just a lovely opportunity. I was surprised. For many years we had tried to find one of the unomis, and then suddenly to come across this set and be able to have it in the gallery right now is a real joy, but also to have this background makes it even more meaningful for us to have it, plus the fact that tying the bow is never easy.
これは非常に珍しいもちろんものでよかったなと思うのはお湯飲みがこういうふうにセットでなっているというのは非常に珍しく、それを今ギャラリーが所有しているというのは非常に嬉しいことであるということです。
So I think we can move on to the next one. I just wanted to share that particular image. So probably one of my all-time favorite shapes is this one. We've had maybe over the last 15 years, 2 other pieces in this form, this being the most dignified and beautiful of them. We should have actually had the reverse as well, because the sugarcane design on the other is like a ballerina. I'm just thrilled to have it as part of the gallery collection, and also want to be mindful that we want to talk about Shinsaku and Tomoo. So this may be brief. Not yet. Thank you.
これ最初、これは私個人的には一番好きな形の陶芸作品で、 今裏側のはないんですけれども、裏側のサトウキビはなんかバレリーナのような思い起こさせるようなデザインになっているということです。
So, Andrew, do you want to add just a bit, and then we'll move on to Shinsaku's pieces?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting when you see the pieces with their boxes, whether it was originally a box ordered by Hamada Shoji, or whether it was ordered later by a collector like the Yunomi we saw. It really emphasizes that these pieces weren't made in a vacuum. They weren't made, you know, it wasn't Hamada and his helpers always hold up separated from the collectors. They met, they talked, they interacted, and that's an important part of Japanese and ceramic art in general, that the makers and the buyers and the collectors interact with each other, and that's one of the beautiful things I think about it.
I agree. Sorry.
Okay. これもなんですけれども、その先ほどの5つのセットも、その浜田庄司さん自身が注文した木箱、あるいはその後でコレクターが注文した木箱というふうにいろいろあるんですけども、この日本の特徴として、その作り手と買い手、あるいはそのコレクターがお互いに話をして、その間に対話がある、そこからいろんなものが生まれるというのが非常に面白い現象ではないかと思います。
はい。
Tomo, I just don't, if you would be willing to just speak briefly about it. I think it's important to have your insights into these pieces of your grandfather's work for now and for the future.
これについて、そのおじい様の作品について、友さんのこれから、またこれからにも関わることですので、ちょっとこれについて、一言おっしゃっていただければ。
そうですね、その絵付けのサトウキビの模様、それから、形がちょっとこうカーブしてるんですけれども、こういうふうにカーブしてます。これは
So if you look at the decoration and then with sugarcane, and if you look at the shape, it's curved as you see it. どうぞ。
絵付けの2種類の絵付けが書いてあるということですね。
Two different kinds of decoration.
Right.
でこれは沖縄のダチビンというカーブしている壺がありまして、その影響を感じます。
So I feel that this is influenced by Okinawa's, it's called Hachibin, which is the curved piece, traditional piece in Okinawa, and then I feel the influence of this.
It's a hip flask that goes along. It's carried with a string and rests on the hip. That's why it's curved.
なんか腰にこうぶら下げるので、だからカーブしてるってことですかね。
そういうことですね。はい。
That's correct. That's correct.
沖縄は益子と同じぐらい浜田庄司は大事に思っていた場所で、また沖縄の陶芸も非常に大切にしていたところがあります。その沖縄の美しい陶器や文化から浜田庄司が参考にした品物というのの一つだと思います。
So this is one of the pieces that influenced from Okinawa's beautiful pottery and beautiful culture, which Hamada Shoji found very important and appreciated very much.
それから柿薬というこの赤茶色の釉薬は益子でしか取れない釉薬です。益子の山の中で取れる岩石を粉にした粉末にしたものを使うんです。
So and also this kaki glaze, which is the brown one, it's originated in Mashiko, and then it's in the Mashiko mountain that you have pieces of rocks, and then you powder it, make it a powder and then uses as glaze, and which is called kaki glaze.
この釉薬はちょっといろいろ釉薬、グレージングとか、ファイアリング、焼くときと釉薬かけるときで非常に難しい、経験がないとうまくできない難しい釉薬なんですけれども、この作品は非常に、よく釉薬がかけられて、非常によく焼けた素晴らしい発色の色になっています。
So this particular glaze, kaki glaze, is very difficult to handle for glazing and firing. You need a lot of experiences, but this particular piece is beautifully done, beautifully glazed, and beautifully fired.
I just wanted people to appreciate it and also to give everyone a heads up that we're going to be going longer than normal simply because I want to make sure that we spend time with Shinsaku and Tomo's work. So let's move on to the next piece. Thank you.
And so this is a piece that I selected because the use of an overall blue glaze in combination with salt glazing, salt glaze firing technique. It's not a glazing technique. It's actually really a firing technique that alters the surface. That's something that originated with the Hamada family, that combination. And this is a wonderful piece by Shinsaku, who is still going strong. I'd like to hear from Tomo how his father is doing and also his ideas about this piece.
これは青グレ釉薬を使って、あとソルト、塩グレーズを使って、焼いたものなんですけれども、これによって表面が変化するということなんですが、これは浜田家特有のテクニックということで、これは非常に素晴らしい作品になってるんですが、これについて一言、
そうですね。塩釉、ソルトグレーズというのは、13世紀頃にドイツで始まった技法です。
So this salt glazing starting in the 13th century in Germany.
でそれを1950年代に浜田書記がドイツを訪問して、この塩釉にチャレンジしようということを考えました。
So Shoji actually visited Germany around 1950s and encountered this in salt glaze, and he wanted to take this in.
ドイツでは器を全部青く塗るということはしません。
So in Germany, they don't cover this entire piece with blue glaze.
皆さんも知っている方もいると思いますが、ビアジョッキとかジャム瓶などのブランドの場所に名前のところにちょっと青とか青い色とか茶色の色とか、花の色とかを描いたりするところだけ絵付けをして、あとは地肌のままというそういうものが一般的です。
So mostly in Germany, you see blue or the brown part. It's like when you decorated the beer jug, the beer mug or something with names or other little decoration, and then most of the other parts are not glazed at all. That's the very usual style.
浜田商事のイメージとして、中国の古い焼き物にゴスでというんですけども、コバルトで全部、ゴスという釉薬で、真っ青に塗った壺とかお皿とかがあるんですけれども、ちょっとそれが浜田商事にとってみたら華やかすぎるわけですね。それを塩釉を使うと、柚子肌っていうんですけども、柚子肌のことはオレンジピールなんとかどうとかって確か英語で言った気がします。はい。その表面がちょっと味わいが増えることで、華美な青ではなくて、渋い青色になるんではないかというイメージを持ったわけですね。
Shoji Hamada actually look at he didn't really like this very the bright blue. The whole thing is a bright blue. But he was imagining the old Chinese pieces with gosu yak, which is like a cobalt blue glaze. But for him, it's just too bright blue. So if he uses the salt glaze, this the surface has changed a little bit, and it's called orange peel surface or glaze. So that has more taste, more different character on the surface. That's what he really liked.
面白いことに、そのような、器全部を青くしてしまうということは浜田庄司が最初にしたわけで、それはその後、私の父や私も同様に円釉で青くするということをしましたけれども、それが逆にドイツやイギリスの作家さんが今、真っ青な円釉の作品を作っているということで、浜田庄司を経由してまたもう一度ドイツやイギリスなどで、なんていうんでしょうね、浜田庄司のイメージの青い円釉というのが広まりつつあるのが面白いと思います。
The interesting thing is that Shoji Hamada first used this blue glaze entirely on the surface of a piece, and from then on, my father, Shinsaku, and myself used this blue one with salt glaze. But now in Germany or in Britain, potters actually regained this technique, and then they started making pieces with blue, the whole thing blue with salt glaze. I think it's a very interesting phenomenon.
Interesting journey for salt glaze for sure. Let's look at the next piece, please. Caroline, I'm going to ask you to talk a little about it, if you don't mind, before we move on to some other thoughts.
Yeah, I'm glad you did. This is one of my favorite pieces by Shinsaku. So this is a familiar bottle form, which you'll see Shoji Hamada's father do. But this is probably the only pot we have in the collection of like 4,000 pieces of pottery in the gallery that has this beautiful little flower dimpling motif on it. What I love about it is it's not only a decoration on top of the pot, but in covering it up, it's really the surface of the pot, the clay, is married with the decoration. I think that's something that the Hamadas are really, really great with. They don't just cover up the clay. It's really married between the two. So you see, like at the bottom of this one, you'll see it's been dipped a couple times. So you see kind of this, and I'll point, this kind of line right here. You see some finger marks there that don't interrupt the piece, but remind you that it's been handmade. And I think my gut says that he probably took his finger, dipped it to make the flower petals. It's just a really sweet motif. It's his own, but it's also in the line of tradition and yet innovation that Shoji, his father, set up. I think it's just one of the wonderful piece, very sweet.
これは私が個人的には、新作浜田さんの中で一番好きなものの一つなんですけれども、この形はまあ伝統的な おじい様が始められた伝統的な形であるけれども、このお花のモチーフがある、陶芸作品はうちにはこれが一つあるのみではないかと思います。でこれの特徴として、その絵付けデコレーションと絵付けとその、表面にある釉薬が非常によく、融合している、ハーモニーを作り出しているというのが特徴ではないかと思うんですけれども、このそこの方はこれ多分何回か釉薬につけてから焼いたのではないかと思うんですけれども、このお花も多分私の想像で指でこう描いたのではないかと思うのですが、一番下の方にも指の跡がついていて、これは非常にその可愛らしい伝統を踏まえながらも非常に愛らしい作品になっているのではないかと思います。
Andrew or Tomo, any other thoughts before we move on to Tomo's work?
ご自身の作品に移る前に何かこれに関して一言ございますでしょうか。
はい。
I wanted to ask for an update on, there we go with the, an update on how his father is, how Shinsaku.
OK。それと、お父様が今現在どうなされて、お元気でいるかどうかの、ことも、追加してお尋ねしたいと思います。まず、この作品についてお願いいたします。
浜田庄司と比べると、浜田新作、私の父は、性格も非常におとなしい、静かな人です。
So compared to Shoji Hamada, who is my grandfather, Shinsaku Hamada, who is my father, is very quiet, characteristic-wise quiet.
世界中を旅した浜田庄司に対して、浜田新作は益子において仕事に集中するという方法を選んでいます。
So Shoji Hamada, actually, my grandfather, that traveled all around the world, but my father, Shinsaku, actually stayed in Mashiko and concentrated on his work.
1年前にイギリスに行ったときに、バーナード・リーチのお孫さんたちと話したことがありますけれども、やはりバーナード・リーチの息子であるデビッド・リーチさんと、浜田新作、両方とも息子ですけれども、似たような性格だっていうことを孫同士で話したことがあります。
So when I went to Britain last year, I saw a grandson of Bernard Leach, and we talked about our fathers, who is Shinsaku, and then David Leach from the son of Bernard Leach, but the grandsons, which is including me, talked about both fathers being very quiet and stayed in one place and concentrated on their work.
やはり強烈な初代の後の息子さんというのは保守的に守っていく性格になるんではないかと思います。
I gather that because of the father was very strong, has a strong character, then the sons, which is like Shinsaku and then David, are much quieter. So that's sort of the typical pattern in terms of relationship.
非常に伝統的で保守的な静かな作品の一つだと思います。
So I think this piece particularly is very traditional and then very conservative, but it's a lovely piece.
キャロラインさんが指摘されたように、指を使ってこの花の模様を描きます。
Of course, as Caroline pointed out, Shinsaku used his finger to decorate this piece with flower pattern.
この梅の模様はもともとは沖縄の丼などに使われている模様が元になっています。
So this is a plum tree, plum blossom, and based on the Okinawa's tradition to use plum flowers as a decoration.
この色がグレーと白と2色ある釉薬に見えますけれども、釉薬そのものは1色しか使っていません。
You could see white part and a gray part, and then you might think you use two different glazes, but actually he used only one glaze.
これはスリップウェアの技法と似ていて、ブラウンスリップを使った部分がグレーの色で、ホワイトスリップで刷毛目ですね。刷毛目をしたところが白くなっています。
So it's a brown slip technique, and then so brown part and then there's a brushing part makes it white color of glaze.
でそこに一色白い地薬っていう浜田庄司が言ってるんですが、その釉薬をかけるとこのような色になります。
So Shoji Hamada called it jigusuri. I'm not sure exactly. I'm sorry how to translate it, but he called it jigusuri, and then that's when you pour that, then that makes the surface into white.
地薬というのは先ほど茶碗ですね。何枚か前の茶碗の時に使った釉薬ですね。
So jigusuri is the one, the glaze that is used in a tea bowl, which is like a couple of pieces before this.
まあ、この作品は私も、私の父の性格らしくて、静かな、穏やかな作品で私もとても好きです。
I love this piece because that really represents my father's character.
Very beautiful. We're just in case anyone needs to leave, they should. We're recording this. So I want to continue now with looking at Tomo's work and having Tomo's perspective. I would also add that Tomo, enormously grateful to you and Andrew for filling in much information for us that is invaluable now and going forward. So the recording will be very meaningful to everyone. Andrew, would you like to begin talking a bit about this? This is two views of the same piece.
Yes. Yes, I selected this piece just because it is so whimsical, almost humorous. Of course, like all of the Hamada pieces, each generation, it is a useful object, but it sort of reminds me of something out of Disney in a sense. Just a wonderfully creative shape, and I would love to hear how Tomo hit upon this particular approach for this little ewer.
これ私がこの2つを選ばせていただいたんですけれども、とってもなんというか気まぐれなところもあり、非常に面白くてユーモアがある作品ではないかと思うんですが、もちろん益子民芸の、伝統を踏まえているので、これは非常に役立つ日常に使える作品なんですけれども、ちょっとなんかディズニーのようなとてもクリエイティブな作品だと思われますが、これについてちょっとお聞きしたいと思います。
はい。その前に、マスケさんの先ほどのうちの父が元気かどうかという質問、
はい、
ちょっと飛ばしてましたので、今94歳で、年齢なりに衰えてますけども、元気でいます。
よかったです。Answering your question from Professor Maske about my father, he is 94 years old and he's a little less energetic, but he is doing pretty well. Thank you.
で、この作品ですね、こういう非常にユニークだと思います。まあ、あまりこういうものを作っている人はいないんではないかと思います。
So look at the bottom of it. It's unique, and then I don't really think that there are so many people who make this kind of shape piece.
まあでも、とても持ちやすく作っています。
But it's very easy to handle, easy to hold.
まあ、胴体の部分と底の部分、2つろくろで作りまして、後から角度を変えてつなげ合わせたものですね。
So I created this, the body part and then the bottom part separately using wheel, and then angled, put them together with angle.
まあ、先ほどバーニーさんが浜田商事の片口で鳥みたいだっていう話をされましたが、これもなんかちょっと鳥のような感じにも見えます。
So Mr. Parker said one of the Shoji's pieces as a bird, but these two also the image as birds.
まあ、これと似た形のソルトグレーズの作品を以前日本で買った私の知り合いが自分の家のパーティーでこれを使ったら参加された皆さんがみんな喜んだというか笑ったというかまあ、ワインを中に入れてデキャンターした状態にして使ったみたいなんですけども、この口からワインが出てくる様子が非常にユーモラスだったと言って笑っていました。
So one of my clients bought this piece and then used it at a party as a decanter of wine, and people who were there at the party enjoyed very much when the wine actually coming from this this open mouth. It was very humorous and then it's very enjoyable, they say.
まあ、鳥の口からワインが出てきたような感じに見えて面白かったみたいです。
So it's like a bird, from the bird's mouth, wine came out. It looks like that, and it was very enjoyable.
It has a wonderful sense of delight, almost as a figure dancing as well as a bird prancing. It's a wonderful thing. And then just for others to pay attention to the medallions and the decoration that Tomo has added, it adds a sense of absolute joy and delight in it. So I can certainly see it as a dancing decanter.
なんかこれは踊っているような、鳥にも見えますけど、なんか踊っているような感じにも見えるので、それにそのデコレーションが非常にユニークで、その喜びにあふれた感じなので、私はこれは踊りの、なんというでしょう、踊っている水、ピッチャーっていうふうに考えております。
はい。ダンシングデキャンターいいですね。素晴らしいネーミングです。
That's great. That's a great naming.
So let's move to the next piece. There's a series of these dishes or plates in the present exhibition that are just absolutely charming and delightful. Tomo, would you talk just a bit about it?
これは非常に魅力的な、今現在個展に出ている作品なんですけども、これについてちょっとお話をお願いします。
はい。我が家ではこれでパスタとか、カリー&ライスとか食べたり、果物を入れたり、ケーキを置いたり、非常にいろんなことに使っています。
Well, in our family, we use this type of plates with in pasta or curry, in rice or fruits or like pieces of cake. Very useful pieces. It's very useful pottery.
まあ、少し深くくぼんでいるので、スープなどを入れても使えます。
And also, it dented very sort of deeply so that you can use it in a soup bowl also.
あと、このウェーブ、縁がウェーブがかかっているんですね。
And then if you look at the edge, it was wavy.
それなので、箸とかフォークなどが動かない、ちょうどへこんだところに当たると、動きにくくなるというか、そういった機能性もあります。
Since because it's wavy, that you can place chopsticks or fork or knives, and it will be hold very tightly there. You won't move around.
Sounds perfect. Can we look at the next two because they're on the same slide?
Hold on a second.
There you go. And have Andrew, would you mind just responding to both of these a bit, and then Tomo?
はい。
じゃあ、まずマスキー教授にちょっとこれについて一言コメントをいただきます。
Yeah, I did want to just mention a little bit about the previous two works. The ewer, Tomo made the point of saying that it's very easy to use, to hold, to pour with, and also that chopsticks or a spoon fit very well and don't slip around. If you've ever had chopsticks on a plate and tried to clear the table with the chopsticks, it seems like they inevitably fall on the floor. So he sort of used his design to solve that problem. And that's such an important thing that relates to the Mingei roots of the Hamada family's ceramics, that they start not with the final design, but they start with the purpose of the piece. They're all pieces to be used, but they think about how they would actually be used rather than coming up with a form or a picture that they want to, shift from a two-dimensional drawing into a three-dimensional object. They start with the object and go forward rather than starting with the overall design picture and figuring out how to simply make it in clay. So purpose is at the heart of all of their ceramics, even if they have such remarkable design qualities and decoration that may dominate how they are seen by many people. Yeah, どうぞ。
すいません。先ほどの前の2つの作品に関してなんですけれども、友さんがおっしゃったように、非常に持ちやすい、あるいは使いやすい、あるいはお箸やフォークやナイフが落ちないというふうなことをおっしゃっていましたけれども、どのお皿も大体お箸を置くと必ずと言っていいほど床に落ちてしまうという、その問題を解決なさったということで非常に素晴らしいというのは、これは民芸の伝統であるその使いやすさ、日常でのその使用ということをまず念頭に置いた素晴らしい作品ではないかと思います。普通は2D から 3D に行くときに、最初からデザインから始まるんですけれども、ここの民芸の伝統を踏まえた浜田家では、どのようにこの作品を使うのか、どのようにこのピースを使われるのかということから、まずその使用目的から始まって、非常にデザインが芸術的美しいにもかかわらず、最初は使用目的から始まるというのが非常に素晴らしいことではないかと思います。
はい。
So these two pieces were just fascinating to me because of the complex nature. They no doubt were complex to create, but that complexity is very obvious in them as we look at them. So I'd love to hear Tomo-san talk about these pieces.
これ非常に複雑な構造を持った作品で非常に素晴らしいと思うんですけれども、これについてどういうふうにお作りになったか、どういうふうにお考えになっているかをお聞きしたいと思います。
そうですね。タイトルがタイベースとなっています。結ぶというイメージがあります。
As I named it Thai vase, it has the image of tying things.
お客様によってはこれをプレッツェルみたいだという人もいます。
Some people call it pretzel.
先ほどから使うという考えで言いますと、これは中が空洞になっています。空洞が全部つないであるので、例えば花を入れる場所が4箇所ある器ということになります。わかりますでしょうか。4箇所に方向がある、下の方に向かっていくと。はい。
So if based on the objective of use, it has everything is empty. It's empty inside, open inside. So you can have 4 different points of putting flower in it.
そのことによって花を固定することができます。
So, because of this characteristic of this piece, you can place flowers tightly and fixed the place of flowers.
それから右側のこの壺なんですけれども、色が赤のポイントで、反対側は緑色のポイントになっています。
Oh, so this right side piece, the one surface, one side is a red point, and then the other side has a green point.
これもその時の気分で色を変えるという、そういうような楽しみ方もできます。
So you can change the size, either red or green, based on your feeling of that day.
この形を実用的、そしてかつ造形的に美しい形にするためにスケッチを2年ぐらいかけながら 実作に移ったという意味で、ちょっと時間のかかったイメージしてから実現させるために2年ぐらいかけたというのは、ちょっと私にとっては結構時間のかかった作品というかでしたね。
So I would like to achieve a usefulness and also beauty in terms of forming. I spent almost 2 years designing and then making sketch and then designing. So these are the pieces that I took a long time compared to my other pieces.
Let me just add, Mugi, that I think they're absolutely wonderful. They have visual energy, movement, and at the same time conform to this notion of function and form. I remember one of the early shows we did actually of Japanese furniture called Yonobi, The Beauty of Use. And I think it fits perfectly with these particular forms, as well as other ones, including the ewer or pitcher that we talked about. There's humor, there's delight, there's joy in the creation of the pieces. This one, 2 years is a lot of time to invest in it, but the end result is really quite marvelous.
これ見てお分かりかと思うんですけれども、その視覚的に見てエネルギーを感じるっていうのと、あとその動きがある。そしてそれ、かつ機能性があるということで、非常に伝統に、そういう意味では機能性があるということで伝統に従っている。前の、ピッチャー、水差しにも言えることなんですけれども、その喜び、あとそのユーモラスな感じも受けるということで、その2年の歳月をおかけになったということなんですけれども、その出来上がった作品は非常に面白い、非常に素晴らしいものだと思います。
ありがとうございます。
Thank you.
And we can look at the last piece if you want, please. I don't know where to begin or where to end. First, I guess with a small apology to everyone for having gone on so long, but I must tell you that I've learned an enormous amount. I want to sort of ask both Tomo and Andrew, as well as Caroline, to just chime in with a comment about this very simple form, but really quite marvelous. Caroline?
Sure. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is that salt glaze, that blue that we initially saw with his father Shinsaku's work. I mean, such a simple form, but it has this stability at the top, but given it's, you know, a piece that's going to be on the table, it still flows the way he's cut it. It does spin. It is a spiral vase. It does spin, which is kind of nice because it kind of reminds you of it being thrown on the wheel. And so you see those lines at the top and then it's fluted on the side to actually spin. So it's quite a nice, friendly piece, which, you know, it can be easily seen and used in someone's home, which is what, of course, I love about pottery as art.
これ私の意見ではその塩薬を使って、前のお父様、おじい様のと同じように釉薬を使っていて、非常に形としてもその上の方は安定感があり、で下の方に行くに従って流れがあって、そのろくろのその筋というのも見えて、非常になんて言うんでしょう、柔らかな友好的な優しい感じのする陶芸作品ではないかと思います。
はい。その指のタッチの自然な動きというのは大切にしています。
I emphasize and I really think it's very important for the movement created with my fingers, and I really appreciate I emphasize on this movement using fingers.
それから下の部分の、削り取っている部分、この丸くへこませながら削る手法はしのぎというふうに日本では言います。
So the technique that is of the bottom part, which is the curved and at the same time you remains the roundness of it. It's the technique called shinogi in Japanese.
それをちょっとこうスパイラルに螺旋型に彫っているところが特徴です。
and then one of the characteristics is that it's a spiral shape. That's what I carved this
まあ、
piece.
上の方がこう、まっすぐ水平な感じで、下がスパイラルというコンビネーションですね。
So the top part is straight, and but it then spiral toward the bottom. That's the characteristic.
And
This-
Andrew?
Yeah, this piece also reminds me what Tomo mentioned earlier about Korean pieces, because there's a very well-known genre of utilitarian jars from Korea during the Joseon period, 17th, 18th centuries particularly, in which the facets, these large facets that we see on the lower part of this piece, are found on these jars. It's the same technique, also known as mentori in that sense, but going around rather than at the bottom, being around the sides of the piece, making it faceted in that way, these brown Korean jars. And it reminds me of that and has very much that same sense of beauty and evidence of the maker's hand in both those pieces and this one.
この作品を見て、昔17世紀から18世紀にあった韓国のジャーというんですか、壺を思い出すんですけども、これも面取りと呼ばれる手法を使った茶色の韓国の壺を思い出させるような作品で、非常に美しいのと同時に手の動き、手の跡、指の跡というのが残されている流動性のある作品ではないかと思います。
So let me conclude with a couple of thoughts. First and foremost, thank you, Mugi, for your patience and for your helpful translation. Andrew, Caroline, and Tomo, thank you all for participating and really educating us all. And the first quote I used, I think, is useful to now reflect on at the end, where artists fight against tradition when they have nothing to add to it. I would certainly indicate a lot has been added to a tradition in a very meaningful and very beautiful way. We're all fortunate. This is by far the longest WebinART we've ever had. And at the same time, my sense is if we chose 3 or 4 more pieces, we would learn some more things. So thank you everyone for your patience. I looked at the number at the top, and virtually everyone who started with us is still with us. It's a tribute to your patience. And I think also the joy of learning from Tomo, from Andrew, from Caroline, and Mugi. Thank you all very much.